So in our previous class, what did we learn in this chapter? This is, as I told you, a very important chapter for you. Union Parliament, Supreme Court and High Court. These three chapters, you should be thorough, absolutely thorough. Any question that they ask, you should be able to answer. If you're thorough, then 20 marks in from the choice section, section B, is in your pocket. Okay, so you have to learn this thoroughly. So we saw that let's do a quick recap. Till then more people will also join in. Now, there are three branches of the government: the legislature, which makes the laws; executive, which implements the laws; judiciary, which upholds the laws and punishes those who break the laws. Okay, so these are the three branches of the government. And then we also said that our government is a federal government. What is the meaning of federal? Federal means administrative powers are divided between the central government and the state government. So whatever, we need powers to look after the people. So those powers are divided between the central government. The central government is also called the union government. The other name for central government is union government. So the union government and the state government, it is divided between them. Why do we have a federal government? That I told you in 2 marks, sometimes they can ask this question. So we need to, 1 minute. Okay, in 2 marks they can ask, so that is why at least 2 points we can learn about why we need a federal structure. First is, India is such a vast country that one single government will find it very difficult to administer the whole country. So if there are two governments, one at the center and one in the state, they can better look after and better fulfill their responsibilities. Okay, that is one reason. The second reason is, India is also a very diverse country, where every part of the country has a different culture. It has different traditions, different languages are spoken in different parts of the country. Now, if the union government, takes up all the power in its hands, then it may not do justice to protect the local problems or to protect the local culture, all these things, and that will affect the people, because if due importance is not given to local problems, local culture, local traditions, etc., they may want to separate from India. They may want to separate from the country, and they may want to make a separate country of their own. Okay, so that happened in Europe actually. So such a separatist tendency, there are a lot of people who are constantly, working hard to break the country into pieces. So to discourage that, and to see that India remains united, we are having a federal system whereby the state governments are also having enough power in their hands to look after the problems and to protect the local culture. I hope we have understood this part. Now, though we have a federal system means that the powers are divided. But even though the powers are divided, there is a unitary feature also. What is unitary feature? Unitary means unifying, something that unites us. How did the Constitution ensure that India remains united? For that, certain things have been given. Okay, here we have only discussed very few things, because again, this is not there in the syllabus, but we will learn 1 or 2 points just in case. These are like backup, we just want to be safe. In case a question is asked, at least it will be asked only in 1 or 2 marks. So we should know the answer to it. And it's an important thing. So how is the Constitution ensuring that we remain united? The Constitution ensures this by making the central government stronger than the state government. The central government is stronger. So whenever, and there are more subjects in the union list than the state list. In grade 8 children, you have learnt about 3 lists. Okay, union list, state list and concurrent list. These 3 lists are the items in which the union government, in union list, the union government has the power to make laws. In the state list, The state government has the power to make laws. And in concurrent list, both of them can make laws. But whenever there is a conflict between the union government and the state government, the union government has an overriding position. That means its law will be valid and the state governments have to listen to the union government. So that way we are trying to keep India united. Then the number of items that are there in the union list are also more than the state list. That also shows that the union government has been made more powerful than the state government. And then there is single citizenship. This you have learned last year in grade 9. Okay, we don't have a separate citizenship for the state where we stay or where we reside. If I am in Maharashtra, that doesn't mean I have a separate citizenship of Maharashtra as well as the citizenship of India. I have only one citizenship, and that is of India. So this also has been done to keep the country united. So these are all parts of unitary feature. So that is the way, you know, the constitution tries to keep India united. What is the Indian structure is called the parliamentary form of government. The government in India is a parliamentary form of government where we have the parliament, and the head of the country is the president. Children, we all know that the prime minister has more powers, you know, in India. Prime minister has more powers than the president, but the head of the country is the president. Okay, so the president plus the two houses of the parliament, they are the supreme law-making agencies. Okay, they form the parliament. Now, what is the parliament? A body of people's representatives who have supreme power of governance. That means we all the people who are in the parliament, they are all people's representatives. We have elected them or chosen them to be our representative, and we are giving them the power to make laws. So such a body is called the parliament, and this is the definition of the parliament. Okay, so you guys have to learn the definitions also. Now, the parliament, as we have already seen, has two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now, Lok Sabha is called lower house or the house of the people. Why is it called like that? Because during general elections, every member of the Lok Sabha is elected directly by the people of India. Last year, children, you have learnt about direct elections and indirect elections, correct? What are direct elections? Direct elections where we directly cast our vote for the candidate who is going to be occupying the post. Whereas indirect elections are we choose a set of people and they in turn choose another set of people, then that becomes indirect election. But in Lok Sabha, all are directly elected by the people, and the strength also is very big. Okay, it is 552. It is almost double of, not almost, it is more than double of the Rajya Sabha. And that is why it is called the House of the People, House of the People, directly elected by the people. Also, it is called the lower house. Rajya Sabha is called the Council of States. Here, every member has been indirectly elected. Here, every state has got its own legislative assembly. The members of the legislative assembly are elected by us. That is the people of that state. Every state has got a legislative assembly. The members of the legislative assembly are elected by the people who are living in that state. Now, those members, the MLAs, the members of the legislative assembly, they elect some people from their state to become representatives of that state in the Rajya Sabha. So from every state, we have few people coming to the Rajya Sabha who have been elected by the legislative assembly members, not by us, not by the people directly, but indirectly. So that is why that is an indirect form of election. And that is why it is called the Council of States, because it has got the representatives of all the states in it. And the strength is only 250. Now, if you go to the composition, that is the division, how this 552 is divided. There are 530 people in the Lok Sabha who are elected from, that is from all the various constituencies, from the states. Okay, 20 people are elected from the union territories. 2 people are nominated by the president from the Anglo-Indian community. As I already mentioned, nominated means just direct selection. There is no election here. We don't elect or nothing. The president directly chooses 2 people from the Anglo-Indian community to become part of the Lok Sabha. And 20 people are all coming from the union territories and 530 people are coming from the states. So this is the division of this 552. Now if we see the Rajya Sabha, 250 is the strength, total strength. And how is it divided? 238. These 238 are elected by the legislative assemblies of all the states and the union territories. And then 12 people are nominated. Here only 2 people are nominated. Here 12 people are nominated by the president. But who are these 12 people? They are all scholars and experts. From which fields? From the field of literature, science, art, sports, social service. So from various, fields they have been chosen, because we need, the government should have experts also in its lawmaking machinery, because then what is needed for that particular, now if there is a sportsman in Rajya Sabha, he can at least put the needs of the sporting community. So the sports community need these kind of facilities. We need to encourage these type of sports. We need more stadiums, or we need this, that. Whatever are the needs of the sporting community, they can at least give advice. When they give advice, the the government also knows that, how much money to allocate and how to develop. That way, these scholars are very much needed to give advice about how to develop various fields, academic fields, whether academic or literature or art or sports. Okay. Now coming to the next one. Then we are now going to see in detail about Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The term for Lok Sabha is 5 years, because the entire house gets elected during general elections. Every 5 years we have general elections, and during that general elections the entire house gets elected. Okay, so that is the term of the Lok Sabha. But if there is, once the ruling party forms the government, sometimes the opposition can pass a no confidence motion, that is saying that, we don't have confidence in this particular government, and they may bring down the government. So through voting process and all, if a no confidence motion is passed, then that government can end before the 5 years. Okay, so the whole Lok Sabha will be dissolved, and a fresh set of elections have to be conducted again to elect all the members of the Lok Sabha. So though the term is 5 years, it can be dissolved before 5 years, and all the powers for dissolving and everything is in the hands of the president. So formally, the president only will announce that the Lok Sabha is dissolved, and he can do this only on the advice of the Prime Minister. This part, children, it should be like a given for you all. President on the advice of the Prime Minister is like a mantra. Nothing the president does without the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Everywhere the president, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers will give advice to the president, and the president will act upon that advice and issue the orders. Only issuing the orders is the work of the president. But what to do, when to do, everything is told by the Prime Minister. Now, if you come to the term of the Rajya Sabha, they have members. The house as such does not have a term. It's a permanent house. The members have a term of 6 years. I told you that there are 250 members. Okay, there are 250 members in the Rajya Sabha. So if we see, 1/3 of these members retire every 2 years. That means 1/3 will come to around 84 members. Okay, so about 84 members from different states are retiring after 2 years. So that means, let's say I am from Maharashtra and I have been chosen to be the member of the Rajya Sabha in this year, 2020. So what is the term for me? The term for me is 2026, 6 years. Correct? When 6 years are over, my term will get over and somebody from Maharashtra should become the next member of the Rajya Sabha, and the Legislative Assembly members of Maharashtra will elect the next person and send him to Rajya Sabha. But everybody's starting term is not the same. All the 250 members in Rajya Sabha are not getting elected in the same year. Now, like I am getting elected in 2020 every 2 years. So 2022, maybe some members from some other state are getting elected to the Rajya Sabha. Are you understanding this? Probably from Gujarat, there are 10 people who are representing Gujarat in the Rajya Sabha. The 10 people are getting elected in 2022. So when will their term get over? 2022 plus 6. When will it get over? 2028. Did you understand? From Maharashtra, my retirement happened in 2026, but their retirement will happen in 2028. Did you understand? That is why it is called a permanent house. Why is it a permanent house? Because only 1/3 of the members will retire every 2 years and will be replaced by new members. Whereas the remaining 2/3 will be there. They will be there in Rajya Sabha and they will retire only when their term comes. So the Rajya Sabha as such does not have a term. What the term is there for the members. Whereas here Lok Sabha has a term. Lok Sabha's term is 5 years and it will get elected and it will get dissolved get elected during general elections, and it can get dissolved after 5 years when new general elections have to be held. Every government can hold a post only for 5 years. After 5 years, general elections have to happen and again a new government will be chosen. So that is the system in Lok Sabha, but not in Rajya Sabha. In Rajya Sabha, every 2 years, 1/3 of the members retire, and that is why in rotation, there are different members who are retiring and fresh members coming to the Rajya Sabha. That is why it is a permanent house. It doesn't ever get dissolved. Okay. Qualifications that are needed are all the same except the age that is needed for Lok Sabha, okay, and Rajya Sabha. Indian citizen, you just can see this comparison. See, should be an Indian citizen, should be an Indian citizen. 25 years of age. For Lok Sabha, they can be younger. So should be at least 25 years of age. Here should be at least of 30 years of age. That's the only difference in the qualifications. Okay. Should be in the electoral rolls of the country. Okay. Their name should be in the voters list, but that means they must be registered voters. They should have the voting card. Okay. Every citizen, like your parents also will be having a voting card. So with the help of the voting card only, they can go on election day and go and cast their vote. So those who want to be part of the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, they should be registered voters. That means their name should be in the electoral rolls and they should have a valid voters ID. Okay. And they should not be of unsound mind. Okay. They should be healthy and not mentally unstable. Then they should not hold an office of profit. Now this is also a very important point. Office of profit means holding another post, another government post. You cannot be holding two posts because that will create conflict of interest. Sometimes you may do something to favor people if you have two posts. So only one post. So if you become the member of Lok Sabha, you have to resign from all other official posts that you are holding. Same way for Rajya Sabha. If you're going to become a member of the Rajya Sabha, if you're already holding a post in government post somewhere else, then you will have to resign from all those posts. Okay, so there should be no office of profit. They should not hold. So these are, see, minimum you should learn 4 points. So I have given here 5 points. There are other points also, but these are the most important ones which I have listed. Now coming to vacation of seats. Now what is this vacation of seats? Vacation means when does the seat become vacant? When does the seat of a Lok Sabha member or a Rajya Sabha member become vacant? So here also the same points are there. There is no problem in remembering. It is the same thing. Okay. When a member resigns, of course, whenever a member wants to resign from his post, his seat will become vacant. Second is when he is absent continuously for 60 meetings. Okay. There are continuously without informing, he has been absent for 60 sessions in the parliament. Then session means not every day meeting. Okay, so 60 meetings you can say. So whenever the parliament meets to conduct its business, in that for 60 days if he has been absent without informing or without taking permission, then automatically his seat will become vacant. So that means he'll be removed from the post. Then when he gets disqualified under anti-defection law. Okay. What is this anti-defection law? Anti-defection law means, children, if I'll give you an example so that it will be easier for you to understand. Suppose I am a member of BJP. Okay, I am a member of BJP in Lok Sabha. Okay, and BJP is the ruling party, right? Right now, the BJP is the ruling party. So, whenever a bill is tabled in the government, whenever we have to cast a vote to make acts, laws, okay, when we have to decide on certain things, a bill is placed in front of the parliament and everybody votes. And once it is voted upon, majority votes they will consider, and then finally, if the bill is passed, then it becomes an act. This is the way, laws are made in the parliament. Okay. Now, since I am a BJP member and BJP is the ruling party, it is my duty to listen to the leader. That is, BJP will definitely give guidelines to its members in the parliament. When a particular bill has been tabled, then every party, whether it is the ruling party or the opposition party, every party's leader will give directions to the members of that party who are in the parliament, whether to support the bill or to say no to the bill. Did you understand? So I will get instructions from the leader, from the party leader. Same way, somebody who is in Congress will also get instructions whether to support the bill or not to support the bill from the leader of the Congress. Similarly, Shiv Sena members will get from their leader. Like that, every political party, they will get directions from their party head as to say yes to the bill or say no to the bill. And as a member of that party, it is my bounden duty to follow my leader and cast my vote accordingly, whatever be my personal views on it. Okay. So if my party says we are supporting this bill, so when the voting happens, please say yes. I have to say yes. And if my party says, no, we are not supporting this bill, so you have to give a negative vote and you must say no, I have to say no. Suppose I go against my party and I cast my vote. My party is saying say yes to the bill and I am giving a no. That means I have gone against the directions of my party. And if I do that, I will be removed from the parliament. I have defected. If I have done that, that means I have defected from the party. Did you understand what is defecting? Defecting means moving away. I am separating myself away from my party. That is defection. Okay. So if I vote against the directions of the party, then I have defected from the party. So naturally, I'll be removed from my party. And if I am removed from my party, I will also be removed as a member of the Lok Sabha. I can no longer hold the post of MP. I have to go out of Lok Sabha. So this is called the anti-defection law. The anti-defection law says every member of the parliament has to vote in accordance with the directions given by his or her own party. And if they go against that, then they are said to have defected, and hence they will be removed from the Lok Sabha. Their seat becomes vacant. Are we clear? There is only one exception to this rule. Suppose I am not the only one who is going against the party. Along with me, along with me, if 1/3 members, so let's say in my party, 150 people from my party are in the parliament. 150, just like that. I'm just giving one number. So if 150 are there and my party says, come on, say yes to this bill. This bill is going to come in the parliament and you all will vote yes. Okay. But I don't want to say yes to the bill. Along with me, there are 1/3 of 150 is how much? 50 members. Okay. 50 members from my party, all of them feel like me. 50 members are feeling that we should not say yes to this. We are very strong and we don't want to agree. Then this 50 people are trying to break away from their party and start a new party. Did you understand? So if 1/3 of the members vote against the directions of the leader of that party, then we will not be removed from the Lok Sabha for disobeying. We will be considered as a separate party. Okay, of course, we will be thrown out of our own parties because the party from which we belong will not tolerate this kind of disobedience. So they will remove us. But we 50 people can make our own party and can remain in the Lok Sabha. We can call ourselves by a different name and a different party, and we can still stay in the Lok Sabha. So this 50, if at least 1/3 of the members are voting against the directions, then that will be considered as a split in the party. Can you see this? When a person gives up his membership of the party or votes against the direction of the party to which he belongs, he stands disqualified to be the member of the house unless, when will he not be disqualified? Unless there is a split in the party with 1/3 members. So when 1/3 members disagree with the decision, they are supposed to have split from the party. And that is why they will not be disqualified from being the members of the Lok Sabha. Am I clear, children? Is there any doubt here? You have to learn this definition as it is. What is anti-defection law? They can ask in 1 mark. They can ask in 1 mark, what is anti-defection law? Okay, so here, you all can see this in the box. This is the anti-defection law. So when a person resigns from his party, when I am in the, when I have resigned from my party, when I am in the, when I am a Lok Sabha member, when I have resigned, that is also anti-defection. That is also called defection. So I stand disqualified under anti-defection. Or if I am voting against the direction of the party, if I am voting against the direction of the party to which I belong. So if a person gives up his membership of the party or votes against the direction of the party to which he belongs, he stands disqualified to be the member of the house, unless, this is the exception to the rule, unless there is a split in the party with 1/3 members. You have to just learn it as it is. But the concept I have taught you, I hope you have understood. So when does the seat become vacant? When a person becomes disqualified under anti-defection law. And when he is holding an office of profit. Again, I told you, you cannot hold an office of profit. So if you're holding an office of profit, you have to resign one of the posts. You either resign your Lok Sabha seat, and if you want to hold the other post, you resign the Lok Sabha seat. Or you want to hold the Lok Sabha seat, then resign the other post. So he should not be holding an office of profit. He should resign any one post. and he should also not come under any of the disqualifications laid down in the constitution. All these disqualifications are that only which we discussed in the previous slide. He should not be he should not be mentally unsound to be a member of the Lok Sabha, or he should not be an insolvent. That means he should not have debts which he cannot repay back. Everybody will have debts, that is fine. But if he cannot repay his debts, if he cannot pay them back, then he has become bankrupt. So those who are declared bankrupt, they cannot become members of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. That is also one of the, so such a big list is there who all cannot be a member of the Lok Sabha. So all that list comes in this point. So he should not become disqualified because of any of the things that are laid down in that such and such person cannot become the member of the Lok Sabha. So there are a list of parameters, we can say. So many parameters are there where you cannot become. Okay, so he should not fall under any of the disqualifications that are laid down in the constitution. The same points are here for the Rajya Sabha. Same thing. So when does a seat become vacant? One is when he resigns, when he has been absent continuously for 60 meetings without permission. Third, when he becomes disqualified under anti-defection law. Fourth is when he is holding an office of profit. And fifth is when he becomes under any of the disqualifications that are laid down in the constitution. Okay, so coming to the next one. Now, again, see the houses of the parliament. So the houses of the parliament, who is the presiding officer? The presiding officer means the leader, the one who is very important in Lok Sabha. He is the speaker. He's called the speaker. And how is the speaker chosen? Once general elections happen and everybody comes to the parliament, all the members of the Lok Sabha, they elect among themselves, they elect and they appoint a speaker. The speaker is elected by the members of the Lok Sabha after election. And for 5 years, he will be the speaker. But in between, if the people are unhappy with the speaker, they can remove him also by passing a resolution. All the members of the Lok Sabha can pass a resolution that they want to remove the speaker, and they can remove the speaker and elect a new speaker. The speaker is a neutral party. Okay, he never votes. He never votes on anything, any bill that is tabled in the parliament, unless there is a tie. When there is a tie, okay, in the votes, only then he will cast his vote. Otherwise, he will never cast his vote. He is only there like a monitor. Okay, the speaker is more like a monitor who is conducting the Lok Sabha. He is whole and soul responsible. He maintains order and discipline in the Lok Sabha. He is the one to whom everybody in the Lok Sabha should listen. Okay, he tries to conduct the business of the Lok Sabha in a smooth way. Okay, so that is his duty. So the speaker doesn't vote. Okay, now other than the speaker, there is a deputy speaker. So in the absence of the speaker, the deputy speaker will do the work. Like we have head girl and deputy head girl in school, head boy, deputy head boy. Same way, when the speaker is absent, the deputy will take over the functions, right? In Rajya Sabha, again, the presiding officer is not called the speaker, he is called the chairman. Okay, same thing. What a speaker does in Lok Sabha, the chairman does in Rajya Sabha. Okay, he's called a chairman. And who is the chairman? The vice president. Whoever becomes the vice president of the country, automatically he becomes the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Okay, there is no election. Here, see, all the members of the Lok Sabha elect their speaker. Here, who elects the vice president? Vice president is elected by both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. All the members elect the vice president. Okay, once the vice president is elected, automatically he becomes the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. So there is no separate election, no separate choosing of the chairman. Okay, whoever is chosen as the vice president becomes the chairman of the Rajya Sabha. That is why he is called Vice President of India is the ex officio chairman. He is called the ex officio chairman for that reason only, because he is holding the post. What is the meaning of ex officio? The meaning of ex officio is this person is holding the post of Vice President of India, and because of this post, he becomes the chairman. He gets to be the chairman, and that is why Vice President of India is the ex officio chairman. And he is elected by both the houses of the parliament. Members of the Rajya Sabha elect a deputy chairman also. Same way, just like we have a deputy speaker, we have a deputy chairman. Same thing, the chairman does not vote. Okay, the deputy chairman is elected only by Rajya Sabha members. Please remember this. Vice president is elected by both the houses, but deputy chairman is elected only by the Rajya Sabha members. And the chairman, just like the speaker, never votes unless there is a tie. Okay, now we will only do till sessions and then we'll stop today. Now we are going to see parliamentary procedures. Parliamentary procedures means what are the systems, that are there in parliament, how do they work? So there are 3 sessions, children, when the parliament, you see all the members of the parliament, they do not attend the parliament every day. In a year, 3 times they meet, and the 3 times are called 3 sessions. First is called the budget session, which is between February and May, and it is the longest session. February, March, April, May, 4 months they meet during this session. Then June, they do not meet. Okay, June, the parliament is not in session. Then again, the monsoon session begins in July. July and August, 2 months, monsoon session. Then again, September, October, they do not meet. Then winter, November and December, 2 months they meet, winter session. Again, January, they don't meet. Again, they will meet in February. So in between, there are gaps. Are you understanding? So at least 2 times they should meet in a year. The rule is in at least 2 times they should meet. Both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha should meet at least twice a year. And the gap between the 2 sessions should be less than 6 months. The word less than is very important here. It should be less than 6 months. But in general, in our country, they meet thrice: budget, monsoon, and winter. If for any reason they are not able to meet for any session, minimum 2 times at least they should meet. Okay, so that is the sessions of the parliament. We have to remember the names of the sessions, the time periods also, and this is very important. They have asked many times in the board, what is the gap between, what should be the gap between 2 sessions? They have asked this question. Okay, less than 6 months.